All right, welcome to another episode of Zed Decoded. Today's topic is Zed's Vim Mode. You can see it here on the screen, or you can see me using J and K. Today I have this thing enabled that shows the keys I press, so you can see that I'm not faking this. With me today is Conrad, who works here at Zed and has been working here since
Middle of last year.
middle of last year, and you've made a lot of contributions to the Vim mode, right?
That was the first thing I worked on. So when I was talking with Nathan about it, he offered me a contract to fix the complaints I had about Vim Mode. And so I said yes and started working on that and then got sucked in.
Nice. What was the first thing you had to fix?
The first thing was just something so I could understand how it works was join lines. So if you shift J, you could join lines together like this. That was the very first thing we worked on.
And that didn't work before?
Nope. Not even in non-Vim Zed. So we first had to add a join lines command to the editor and then the keyboards to make it work for Vim.
All right. That's okay, cool. That's interesting because I use this a lot. I would also bump into this.
Right.
Okay, so first of all, I think for everybody who doesn't know, we do have a Vim mode in Zed. You can enable it by, let me quickly check my settings. It's the first, here, Vim mode true. You put this in your settings, and then if it's false, you're lost and nothing works like you expect it to. But if you turn it on with true, and then I think Command S, you save, and then you get that block cursor, and then suddenly you can use Vim motion. So we do have a lot of Vim motions, right? So we have W, capital, backwards. We have visual mode, visual block mode, right? Mm-hmm. Which is, well, this is already getting into the weeds, right? The visual block mode is...
Well, visual block mode is Vim's kind of control up and down. It's somewhat different from Zed's multi-cursor mode, where you can just add multiple cursors wherever you want. But it lets you do neat things, like if I wanted to add something at the start of all of these lines, you can do that, which is kind of cool.
But isn't it implemented as multi-cursors?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess a good example of that is like if you then go to the end of the line, in Vim you don't get this just like everything's previewed.
Yeah.
It kind of waits till you leave insert mode and then inserts.
Right. And then you have to hit escape and then it inserts this.
Mm-hmm.
How did you just added a lot of cursors here quickly. How did you do this in Vim mode?
In Vim mode, Control V and then I just hold down.
But I mean, you did something like this that I can simulate with option clicking. Didn't you do this? Just now,
Well, the main way I do it is Control V down to add up and down cursors, but you can also do GN to go to the next word, or G star.
Star, and then...
No, sorry, GL. It used to be GN, but we had to change it because Vim already had GN that I didn't know about when I built that.
Oh, so GL, there you go. Okay, so GL, it's selecting in for me.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, and then I can change it, and then changed this. Okay. GN. That's what I think whenever I use multi-cursors, I fall back to clicking, which is not... We all know that's not ideal, using the mouse. Okay, before we jump ahead, sorry. We got basic Vim stuff, right? We got W, B, J, K, what else? E, all of this stuff.
We have all the scrolling stuff. So you can
we got F and T, right? F to find the next character. Fi jumps to the next I. We support counts with this, right?
Yep.
So, you can see it at the bottom, right? I just did 5 Fe. We got T. Jump to the next. In front of the until, I think is the memory. Until the next character. What else do we have? We can cheat here. I'm in the Zed room. We can open the default Vim key bindings, right? So we got insert mode, we got insert after, command palette. So this is kind of cheating, right? Where we leave the Vim mode, : opens our command palette.
One thing to note about that is
Yeah.
all the Vim commands actually still work. So you can do :W and it will hit the Vim command for you.
So if I do this, :W, then I think, yeah, explore opens this, right? Which is, and in this, we also have like the what's it called? Net RW. Keybinders to rename stuff. So navigation, jump to the end of lines, out of line, word motions. This is, and I think that's an interesting bit, right? We have a mix of, I think the docs go into this if I scroll down here. Jumping ahead, sorry. Here we have like some plugins already mixed in, right, in our Vim mode. We do have support now for surround. So you can, like if you have something in quotes, foobar, and you delete the surrounding quotes, that works, which is in Vim, it's a plugin. Vim commentary to toggle comments on and off, which I can't do in a markdown file. This is the file explorer, key bindings, project panel. And this was new to me, right? Subword motions, that's what we just saw here, right? Jump to, where is it?
Yeah, so they're disabled by default, but if you put these into your bindings file, then Word will work on like underscores in camel case and uppercase letters in uppercase letters in camel case and then underscores in snake case.
So W would not jump to the end here, but it would jump to the S.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Cool. So that's all pretty new, right? I think all of these like surround, I think landed in the last, what was it, 6 weeks ago or something?
Yeah, maybe 6 weeks, maybe a month.
Yeah. This one too. So we got a lot of stuff. We got a lot of basic, searching, of course, jumping to the matching, parentheses, FD. I think you worked on this, right? Like, this is new, right? This is here 3 weeks ago. We now have marks or basic mark support.
Yeah, so I mean you can use that within a buffer, but the one I use all the time is going back to the previous place you were. So using the built-in kind of dot marks and things like that.
So that's in Vim. If you make a change right here and then you're somewhere else and you want to jump back, that location is stored in the semicolon. Or no, it's stored in a different mark, but with G semicolon you can jump back to this, right?
Yes. So with you can make apostrophe dot goes back to where you were.
Apostrophe dot. There you go. Okay. Oh, there you go. Yeah, jump, and then it jumps. It's the operator apostrophe, and it jumps to a mark. But I think what's missing. So it says basic mark support. I don't think we don't have the global marks, or some of the other built-in marks yet.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like the 0 to 9 marks kind of don't make so much sense in Zed. They're really optimized for if you're opening and closing the file a lot, which you do in Vim. In Zed, you tend to leave it running all the time. But global marks would be cool.
Yeah. And but this we do have now. Oh, that was a separate change, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have the like quote open paren and quote close paren because they're actually synonyms for just open paren and close paren, which is also not something we have yet for sentence motion. But we will.
Oh, sentence motion. Yeah. This is the jump list, which works, but I think we both talked about this before. It doesn't. There's some edge cases to it, right? It doesn't work like 100% like you would expect it to. Still.
Yeah, we'll improve that. Have you been using the change list? Because that's the other thing we added.
Yeah.
recently.
So change list. Yeah, change list is what I use.
G semicolon.
G semicolon, right? So you can go back to previous changes, and that also works across files.
Yeah, it nicely Zed already had something, and so it's just a case of making the Vim mode use the Zed thing.
Nice.
From testing it, it felt pretty similar to how Vim did it, and so I was like, okay, this seems good.
Yeah, I think there's some with multi-cursors. I think stuff might get more complicated, right? Because you have multiple locations of change.
Yeah, and I think that works. Let me see if I can. So if you have like a change of 3 cursors and then you go back to it, it gives you all those 3 cursors back again, which is kind of nice.
Okay, you need to hop in this project here, Conrad. I want to see trick shots in here. We get all of these, the window control, window related counts. Z command. Oh, Z commands are, or Z scrolling commands. There you go. Yeah, scrolling, right? Then, yeah, let's go. Let's jump to these. But looking here in docs, we do have these that are not core Vim, right? Neovim has equivalents, or some plugins for Neovim have equivalents, but we do have these. Go to definition, type definition. So let me open the vim.rs file. So that's gonna boot up Rust Analyzer, but that then allows us to actually use this. So I used the first one, GS, which opens the buffer symbols. So that's, where was it? Here, find symbols in current file. G capital S is, there you go, finds global symbols in the whole project. Diagnostics, so if you put an error in, I don't know, let's put one in here. Rust Analyzers. Still busy though.
You can show off the change one, because if you jump to the next change, it'll take you back there.
Which one? The G...
square bracket C.
Square bracket C, yes. This, wait a second, square bracket C. If I save this... Wait, why? Oh, because I undid the change, right? Yeah. Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, the jump to the git diff hunks, right?
Yeah.
It goes through these, which is all. I just discovered this 15 minutes ago. While having that.
Yeah, so you fixed the docs. So
yeah, so that's pretty handy. Tree sitter. This is also pretty sweet, right? We do everything's based on tree sitter. Max's name just popped up here, so it's yeah. You can select syntax nodes like this and go to the larger or small one. Mm-hmm. We don't have, some people have asked about this, syntax nodes as objects. We don't have that yet, right?
We have one right now, which is the argument, and so you can like...
Oh, we do have this?
To get the argument, but I kind of want something that's like the statement. You know, like in this case it would be this line, but in this case it would be all these lines. But I don't know, it's hard to get that out of tree sitter.
Wait, how do you select the argument? I didn't know this.
VIA or VAA.
Oh. So that works even from, where is it? It's not documented.
No, it's not. We should add that. How to express it, I guess. Maybe tree sitter.
Text objects, yeah. Text objects, tree sitter text object. So does that mean even from inside? No. VIA. But that selects the body of the function, right?
Where did you do that from?
In the body of this function.
Right. So it really is optimized for if you're on an argument. So if you see where I am. Okay. And then
wait, let me follow you.
Here. So we have this thing. VIA gives you that argument.
Ah. Okay, that's cool. And some people, they want, yeah, what you said, you want basically delete this statement, which would delete this whole thing, right?
Yep.
And then people want to delete the function or the current block, which is, I mean, you can do this, right? With, if you have a block like this and you say, let fillbar equals this, whatever, you can select the syntax node like this, and you have to hit, I think you have to hit it 3 times to select this, and then you can do this.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I want to figure out like what are the right levels of node.
yeah.
Like function is an obvious one, but the stuff within a function is like, is it a block or a statement?
Yeah.
It'd be really cool to have.
There's Vim does have equivalents, right? You can. I think they're optimized for C code, right? So you can say delete the next function or something like this, but it doesn't work in all languages.
Right, but we can probably use Teresa to do that. It's I think it's double square brackets or square bracket.
Yeah.
Curly brace.
Wait, where are you again? Here.
But that's on the to-do list still.
Yeah. So, okay, he just added. Diagnostics. Let's show this real quick. So if I don't know, let's put a number in here. So that's gonna break something. And now Rust Analyzer says here's, this is an error, and wait, I can't. What key binding do I use? To verbalize this is really hard. Here, there you go. That's one. That G closing square bracket, right? Yeah. To jump to this, and then I go through these because we don't have something like the quick fix list. So I just use the G commands to go through these. And then once you're on it and you want to close this, you just hit escape.
I mean, I've rebound, so if you do clist, which is the command to open that, it will open the diagnostics window for you, so you get kind of the same behavior. And obviously if you had many errors, they'd all show up here.
Yeah. And also, this here is a multi-buffer, right? So if you say, if you have, multi-buffer can be anything, right? So the search results are also technically a multi-buffer. And then, do we have a binding to jump to the next item in a multi-buffer yet? I don't think so yet, right?
I just set my key repeat rate really high and use that.
Yeah. But then once you're on one, you can hit, I use G space to open the thing. And then you can Command O to go back. Yeah. I have to pause and think what I'm doing here.
Control W space opens in the adjacent pane, which is pretty useful if you're trying to fix all these diagnostics.
Control W space. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, sweet. And then I can quit or Command W Q. Multicursor. Let's talk about this. So this is one of the most interesting things about Vim Mode in Zed, that in other editors you are either in Vim Mode or you are in this other mode where you have multicursors and whatnot. But in Zed, in Vim Mode, you can use multicursors, right? So you can obviously do this by using your mouse and just clicking with Option. You can also do this by using the default Z key bindings, which is, I think, Command D, right? Which selects the next copy of the current word. You also have Command Shift
up and down. Do this.
Which one?
Command Option up and down give you something that's kind of like Visual Block Mode, but is actually underneath.
And then you have Command Shift L, which selects all occurrences of the current word. But we do have these Vim key bindings for this too, right? So GL. Oops, I just jumped to the next cursor. So let's use a different example. Here, GL. Selecting the G's. GL backwards doesn't exist. G. This doesn't work for me.
What are you trying to do? G Shift L?
This one here.
Oh, so watch this. If you do GL and then you don't want to change this third one, then you do G. Oh. So you can move it without adding it, and then you can add some more, and like skip this one, add some more.
And then you have true multicursors, right? And you can use your normal. Well, you have multicursors in Vim normal mode, right? And then you can go to insert mode and do whatever you want, basically.
Right, exactly.
That's pretty cool. And this is the select every copy of the current word. So the funny thing is, people ask me about this. don't you miss a lot of stuff from Vim? And I think these obviously haven't gone over into muscle memory yet, but what I did a lot in Vim was hit star to search for the thing under the cursor, and then use CGN to change the next search result. And I use this a lot in Vim. But in Zed, you can actually do this with multi-cursors, right? Instead of hitting star, you can do GL or GA or whatever it is and change all of them. And you don't have to go through star or the other ways to use search. So I do think this can replace some Vim usage. But that being said, as of, I think it's also been like 6 weeks, we do have star and we do have CGN, right, to select the next search result.
Very common muscle memory one, it turns out.
Yeah. Oh, let's talk. I want to hear you talk about this. Pain management. This is here. Let me. Why isn't it that easy to just hide the tab bar here? Like,
well, so one of the things with Vim is that the default level of organization is tabs, and within tabs you can have multiple panes all split up. In Zed and in, I think, most GUI apps, it's the other way around. You have panes, and then within the panes you have the tabs. And so it doesn't quite map to exactly how Vim does things, because we have the hierarchy inverted. But we've done our best. So most of the Control W things for managing panes will work. They just work within the tabs. Most of the tab stuff will work. It just works within the panes. And so it should feel the same, even though if you actually stop and think about it, it's working completely differently.
Yeah. There's I think this is where the Vim rubber hits the road, the Zed road, like with stuff like this, where people, they ask in tickets, like, why I want to hide this, or I want to, buffers should behave like they do in Emacs or in Vim or something like this. And I think this is kind of where stuff stops working Vim-like, because it would require Zed to be organized completely differently.
That said, while you're talking about this, if you're on the latest nightly, you can now do toggle tab bar and get rid of the tab bar. So
toggle tab bar, there you go.
Boom.
Nice. And then you have, what's the other binding? Here, there you go. I bound it to leader or comma FB to open the currently open buffers.
Do you want to show off some of your key bindings? Because I know you have a lot.
Well, let me see. So what I do have is, this is debug stuff. I think this might be interesting because this took me a while or your help to come up with, right? These are my global key bindings to, tab switcher. This is what I just showed, comma FB. And this is also to be noted, we don't have native support for leader key, but you can use a comma in your key bindings. Or I think you can also do space like this, right, nowadays?
Yeah, you don't need the angle brackets.
It's just space?
Yeah, exactly.
So if I hit save and now hit space FB, there you go. Yeah. So I got these, and these are global. That means this one here, File Finder, FI, this also now works when, let me show this off. If everything is closed, this also works. And then, same with task running, open recent projects. And if somebody's watching this and goes, this does not make sense, this is not consistent. Yes, it's not. I don't know. This is muscle memory. So Control S opens my recent projects. And then this here is, I guess, Vim normal mode, right? Toggle zoom, Control WT toggles the terminal panel, or opens it. These, I think, I added support for these, so I have these 4 bindings, Control H, L, K, and J, and I have the equivalent down here for the dock. So if I have the terminal open and I want to go back up, I can hit Control K, and now I'm back up. If I want to go down to the terminal, Control J, and I can go to the left in the project panel with Control H, and then also to the right. So this is what I had in my Tmux Vim setup, and makes navigation consistent. So that's navigation. I don't know why I have this. Why do I have this? I think it's just go to diagnostic, go to previous diagnostic.
We ported those over to the main ones now.
Yes, I can also comment these out. Find all references. I think we do have a binding for that, right? But I think it's G-Shift A, and I just bound it to the one that I had in Vim.
Yeah, makes sense.
But we do have, there you go to all references. So if you're in, let's show this real quick. Here, we're in up command palette, go to finding all references. I don't know, my Rust down, there you go. And then it opens a multi-buffer with all references. What else? I think we also have this, no? Or maybe it's just...
We've added... Yeah, let me just tidy this up for you because we added those.
Fair enough.
We added those.
Yeah, these... This is me... I don't know, this is... soft wrap, right? Like this this overrides J&K, so it works with soft wrap, which is what you also have to configure in Vim. Toggle git blame, so you can do here. Open it and close it. What else? Same thing. Make these work with a soft wrap. 0 and the $sign. These I think we also now have, right? I can also delete those.
You do, yeah.
Or delete them.
There you go.
Terminal. Clear. I don't know. I think these were experiments to debug something, and then this is the doc. So yeah, there's not a lot left that I miss in our Vim mode. Now that we have change list, jump list, there's bigger things that I miss, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. What I miss is, selecting something and then search and replacing in that selection.
So we actually added, I've been working with people, we added the ability now, if you know the line numbers, it's really janked, but you could do like line 46 to 60, like search and replace space with X.
What do I need to type in? Like, is this the...
So it's first line number, comma, second line number.
Yeah, so basically if I say I want to replace in line 2 to 5, is it this?
Mm-hmm.
And then Zed, Zim, like this?
Yep.
Zim, it did work. Nice. Okay, so this also opens the native search and replace.
Yeah, and you'll see there's an icon on the right as of yesterday, which is the search and selections button. So we now have the infrastructure to make the search and selections work.
Which button?
The one that looks like a bunch of lines.
This one.
Mm-hmm.
What does that do?
So if you have a selection in the editor, it will set that to be the search and replace within selection. But you need to have a multi-line selection in the editor to make that button work right now.
Oh, so if I have a selection and this is toggled on, it will only do the search and replace in that selection?
Correct.
Oh, that's cool.
So, in order to make this work in Vim, we need to probably make it so that when you do colon, we input the little syntax it does. It's like quote angle for you. But the first thing we need is when you open the command palette, you can press up to get back to what you were doing before, because without that, it's really hard to get it right in the first try.
Yeah. We don't have history here, right? I mean, we do have... It's not a history. I think this is last used command, right? That's what this shows here.
Right. And so what you actually want in Vim mode is like, what did I type last time so I can like just do it better this time?
Yeah.
It's like many of the Vim features it's not that far away from being able to support it. It's just figuring out how to make it work and feel right. Because I don't want to have the same thing that Vim does, where you open the command palette and it always gives you the angle brackets, and then you do a command that says, well, I don't care about your selection. And it's like, well, don't care then. But instead Vim fails. And so trying to make it a little smoother than that would be nice for people like me who are chaotic.
How do you think about this? How do you think about being really strict to what, being really strict and getting it 100% like Vim and having some freedom? Like, how do you make these trade-offs?
Yeah, for me, it's always down to what people expect. And so a lot of the Vim keyboard shortcuts are actually very well thought out. And it's tricky because they're very hard to describe exactly what they do, but they do the right thing. And it's like, that's amazing. And so when it comes to things like motions, like, okay, we're going to build sentence motion, for example, it's going to be exactly like Vim because they've thought through the edge cases, they've done all of that. And although their implementation is very complicated, I kind of trust that it's complicated for the right reason, which is it does what you want.
Yeah.
On the flip side, when it comes to like the new stuff of, hey, Zed can do all these things that Vim can't, like I really want to push people in those directions. And so that means, for example, if you press / to search, you get the Zed search. And that means that we don't have to rebuild the whole of Vim's search. We can just use the Zed one. Which already supports, searching across all the files that you have open and all the things that Vim doesn't have.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that's the answer to the question, but it's something in there. Like, you should do what people expect and try and not break that muscle memory.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Is it the devil's advocate? I don't know who's asking this, but it has come up multiple times, and that is, why not just embed Neovim inside Zed?
I mean, mostly because if we're trying to build a text editor, particularly an IDE, I guess, more than just a text editor, we need super tight integration with what's going on. So, for example, like you and I are both in this file right now, both editing over here, and it kind of works. To put that into Neovim is very complicated. Suddenly you need to change the way that Neovim works from just a straight buffer to a CRDT. We have all of the underlying tech, and we need that to be really good. And so you could go down the MVim thing and you'd win Vim compatibility, but you'd lose like any reason to use Zed. And so it's like, well, if you want to use NVim, like go use NVim is kind of where I land on that.
Yeah. I mean, the way I think about it is, a lot of stuff that makes Zed really good, high performance, multi-buffers, the multi-cursor, collaboration mode, right? That wouldn't be in Vim, and we would have to port it or make it work inside Vim, and then it would not work the way it does right now.
Right.
And
we'd have to build it twice, which is always the thing I want to avoid.
Yeah. So let's dive into the implementation. So you can maybe guide us around. I open the file. So just to set the scene a little bit, I think if somebody's interested in hacking on the Vim mode of Zed, it's pretty well contained in this one crate, right? It's I think all of it is basically in this one thing, except maybe the default key bindings and whatnot.
Right. Yeah. So let me talk through briefly.
I'll follow you.
Okay, great. So pretty much everything gets kicked off in this init, as you'd expect. Register a bunch of settings the Vim way. We have to hook in at quite a high level to the way that Zed does stuff. So this thing like observe keystrokes is actually only used by the Vim mode. And we use that to kind of intercept things that are happening in the editor and like make sure the Vim state stays in sync. And then beyond that, like once we have it all set up, then this is just much more normal Zed code of we register actions, which are how keyboard shortcuts work, and then each of these subcrates for the things registers a whole bunch of actions to do their thing. So
let's pause on this for a second. So we do have actions. Actions is everything you see in the command palette, right? Or well, maybe a subset, I don't know. But basically, something like what you mentioned, join lines, right? That's an action defined in the editor, and you can trigger it with a keybind, right? Control J in, I guess, the normal editor. In Vim mode, it's Shift J, and we do have two actions. We have a Vim action and an editor action, but basically what you said, like write or Vim word, like a lot of these motions are defined just as actions, and you can theoretically do this by just using the command palette. You can navigate in Vim mode.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So you can all do it with the command palette. The reason that we have a difference between like the editor join lines and Vim join lines is Vim wants to be able to do things like repeat with the dot key. Yeah. So we need to know like what you did. And Vim is very, very careful around its selection and what happens when the selection changes or updates, whereas the Zed editor is a little bit different in its approach to things. And so we tend to wrap the things the editor does so that we can add counts, we can add repeat, we can make the selection correct, and go from there.
Interesting. So, but that's pretty modular in that you just, where were we? You just register your actions. And then here, basically, you record stuff so you can replay it, and you check whether there's a count when it's triggered or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so, yeah, adding a new Vim thing is mostly a case of adding the new action here. That said, many of the remaining ones haven't been implemented because, like we were talking about sentences, for example, there's a lot of code that goes into Vim sentence object, and so making that work well is going to be fun.
Yeah. I mean, let's take a look, for example, at surround. Add surrounds, right? This was added 2 months ago. I think it was merged. Yeah, April. Add surround support. So how is this hooked up? Add surrounds here.
So yeah, this add surrounds is the call, and there'll be a corresponding call to kind of register action, probably in a different file. But then when you hit actually, if we jump to all references, then we can see it. How does this actually work? It's completely different from what I said. So surrounds are a bit different because when you do a surround, you type something like YS quote, and then any character. And so rather than trying to bind every single possible key on the keyboard, we just say, you're in the editor, we got some input, we're in a Vim mode where we're intercepting that code, that character. And so at this point, that's when we hook into this one. So that I guess is a bit different. And you can see kind of further up in this file, that's how things like F and T work as well. They put the editor into a mode where it's like, don't actually do any input, send me any text that gets put in by the user.
But that's how, let's maybe look at here. If I have foobar in quotes and I do CS double quote, single quote, right, which is also Vim surrounds feature to change the surrounding. C change surrounding single quote to double quote. How's that implemented? I bet if, like, here's how I would start to dive in. I would look at the default Vim key bindings and see, is it an operator, like change?
So down here on line 419, if we're already in C mode, then we go into S mode. So CS,
there you go. Okay. Change surrounds, yeah.
And similar here, if we're in delete mode, and then you go into S mode, go into delete surround modes. And so Vim is internally maintaining this stack of operators, which is kind of like everything you've pressed. The counts are kind of all part of this system too, so that if you do... Yeah, one thing I didn't realize before trying to build this, in Vim, if you can move the count kind of anywhere in the command that you want. And so if you want to delete 5 lines, you can do like 5DJ, or you can do D5J.
D5J, yeah.
And it just kind of works. But that means you need to keep track of these kind of 2 different stacks of key presses to figure out what is all of the operators that have been pressed, what are all the counts that have been pressed. And then you get to the end and you kind of multiply them out and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, the difference is 5DJ is delete 5 times downwards, whereas the D5J is delete 5. Like one multiplies the object and one multiplies the operator. Is that how it works?
Exactly. And they mostly work the same. And I don't remember now what happens if you do like 5D, 5J. It does something. But
25 lines deleted, I bet. I don't know.
Let's try it. 5D, 5J. Yeah.
It did, right? Like that. Yeah, okay. So it's basically... Like, if you read through this code in the Vim crate, there's a lot of... if you're a Vim user, you recognize a lot of things, right? It's I wouldn't say it's relatively easy to understand. I struggled with a lot of the stuff because there's a lot of state involved, which I guess inherently it is with Vim.
Yeah, someone was very kind and they said, it's amazing that you've built this much of Vim Mode in less than 5 million lines of code, which is about how big Vim is.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot to understand. It's also one of the earlier pieces of the Zed code base, so they actually started on Vim Mode a long time ago, and then abandoned it for about a year, and then I came in and kind of picked it up. And so I've been slowly refactoring as I go, but I'm very scared of breaking everything for everyone.
Yeah. There's a lot of subtle behavior, right, that people also expect. Like I don't have my note here, but there are many things that pop up in tickets where people ask and say, I use this every day in Vim. I think the latest one that I was surprised by was capital S, which is replace mode, right?
Yes.
No, is it R? Which one was it? There was somebody gave even a bounty or put $100 on this to be implemented. I think it was.
Yeah. So Shift R is replace mode, not to be confused with G Shift R, which is virtual replace mode. And then there's also I think selection mode, but I don't even remember how you get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that one got implemented, but it's kind of crazy to me because I used Vim for probably 10 years before switching over to Zed. How much stuff I never even knew about.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of fun to learn.
Yeah, there's a lot of tricky stuff that people are used, or even leaving aside even the key bindings, right? There's this aspect where people say, I want to customize this as much as I want, as much as I had customized Vim. But then there's also these people using every nook and cranny that Vim had to offer with every key binding, and like, didn't you know that I think ZZ, right, centers or zooms by centering, but I think somebody opened a ticket because it didn't take a count or something like that, right? Or
yes.
Like one of these I didn't know that's a thing. I didn't even know that works.
Right. And yeah, it's kind of interesting because when I first started looking at it, I was like, wow, okay. Well, sure, there's like more Vim than I use. But then I realized that people like me who've been using Vim for 10 years and they don't know about all the stuff that I use. They've just found their own like path through it.
Yeah.
And so trying to make Zed work for all of those is fun. And we've kind of got to a point which is nice where the Vim itself is good enough. People are missing the plugins. Whereas for a long time, the Vim itself was not good enough. And so people kind of bounced out pretty quick.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We're over the hump with... Like, I think when I started at Zed, I had a node full of stuff that I'm missing in Vim Mode, and I think most of that is now checked off.
It's good. We should go back and revisit that, see if there's anything else.
Well, let's talk about tests. So because you did something pretty sweet here, you want to show us how you test Vim Mode.
Yes.
Conformity, I guess?
I can't take the credit for the idea. That predates me. But one of the things that we realized is that it is, if you're trying to write tests like this of like, okay, this is the indent appdet test, you can do this of like, we start in this kind of state with the editor. You see we have 3 lines here, A, B, B, C, C. We indent B, and it looks right.
But wait a second. No, not that fast. Where were we here? This means... So this is sweet, right? Like, what does this do? Explain this.
Right. So this sets up an entire Zed with the contents AA, BB, CC, and the cursor position right here. Though in Vim Mode it will be like this.
And it leaves you in normal mode.
And it puts you in normal mode. And so this is kind of how most of the tests were to start with. But then we realized that Neovim has a API that you can call. And so NeoTests, if you look for the Neovim test context, or Neovim back test context, they do the same thing, but we run the test against Zed and against Neovim. And so if you jump to where I am, this is like
I'm following you.
The visual change test. You can see here we set the state, and so again we're setting up a Zed and a Neovim with this in the buffer. We run these keystrokes against both, and then we insert both Zed and Neovim end up with this.
Nice.
And that means that we can't trick ourselves into thinking that it works, because if Neovim does something different, the test will fail and it'll say, actually, your test is incorrect.
Yeah.
And so that's been pretty fun. And the way that kind of works under the hood, if we
let's look at it. I'll follow you. Let's look at it.
Yeah. We have two modes that this runs in. One of which is if the Neovim feature is enabled, in which case we actually talk live to Neovim. And then the other is it records all of the output to JSON files, and I don't know if we can find them, but here's an example. And so that means on CI we don't have to go through the whole hassle of installing Neovim and making sure it's running and making sure it's quick. We just know, okay, we started with this state, we sent this key, we got this state back. And that way the tests can run quickly on CI and still verify that we have Neovim compatibility that hasn't broken. And so
so if I run, let's go back to one of these tests. Where was this? Here, test visual change, right? So in the test, you do this, you go in visual mode, jump a word, and then change it. So if I run this, I think I do have Neovim. So okay, it's got to install the crates. But what this does is it runs the test in Zed, and it also runs it in Vim, and it produces this JSON file, like as a golden or test fixture kind of file or something.
So yeah, you're running the test right now without the Neovim feature flag, I think, and so that you'll be running off the JSON fixture file, which is what most people do. But when you're actually developing the feature, you can run with the feature flag Neovim, and that will pull in Neovim to get it working.
So basically, if you say run it with the Neovim mode, it gives you the desired state in the JSON file and says this is what you should do.
Exactly.
That's pretty sweet. Okay, we still have.
I think we were like messing stuff up.
Yeah, here workspace and then foobar. Okay, that's pretty cool. And then how? Okay, so here's this. What is indoc? That's a macro.
That's a macro.
Oh yeah,
that's strip out all the leading indentation.
Yeah, all of this.
And then this is kind of another helper if you jump down a few lines that we have, which is often you want to run the same set of commands in a bunch of different edge cases and check that they all work. And so because we have the master file that Neovim gave us, we don't actually really need to assert what the state ends up as. We just need to assert that it matches Neovim. And so we can do tests like this where it's like 3 tests in one. Like we're going to try this in 3 places and check that it does the same as Neovim.
Oh, so what this does is it says try it here, and then try it here, and then try it here. Is that what it does?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's cool. I didn't know that. And then there's another way, isn't there? We have other fancy syntax to kind of simulate
the selections.
Yeah. Where's that?
Probably Vim Visual, I guess. That's what we do also selecting. Here it is. Test GM. That's something we added 3 weeks ago. No, I refactored all the tests 3 weeks ago. That's why it says 3 weeks ago. So you can do this to say this is the selection. And one kind of interesting thing to note about that is you'll see the cursor is at the left of the selection in this case. That's because I'm selecting backwards. And the cursor is at the right of the selection in this case, and that's because I'm selecting forwards.
Nice.
And that's turns out a key distinction in some cases.
Yeah, I've been confused a bunch of times with the block cursor makes stuff harder actually in tests. If you just have the line, you know that the line is exactly here, but with the block cursor, I think this means it's on this character, no?
That's right. And actually, it's kind of like one of the big impedance mismatches with Vim and Zed is Vim addresses like the character in the document, so the cursor is always on a character. Zed addresses the slots between the characters, which makes sense for insert mode, right? Yeah. That's kind of like the default mode. But it means that there's kind of this hilarious edge case right now. So if you go to the end of the line and press right, if you're in insert mode, that would work, right? And so in Zed normally that works, but in Vim mode we have to say, you have a block cursor. You're not actually allowed to get to that point. You can't go to the end of the line. I don't know. It's just something to think about if you haven't thought about it before. But there's a kind of like one extra position in Zed that doesn't exist in Vim.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of these. I think the other one that I bumped into was how we handle, maybe that's wrong what I'm thinking, but how we handle new lines, in that, wasn't there this bug where you jump to the end of the line with the $sign that we would previously land on the new line character and not on the last character of that line? Or did I fix this?
Well, there's a couple of things like that. So it turns out that Vim distinguishes in different things the end of the line being the last position you can get to, and the last character in the line. And if you're quickly trying to build Vim mode and not paying too much attention to the docs, it's easy to mess those up.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there've been a bunch of fixes. I think G underscore is probably the one you're thinking about. Where it used to miss by one character, and now it's right.
Yeah, and the other one, I think that's in Vim, if you have a line or multiple lines and you start visual mode and then jump to the end of the line, it goes right before the end of, right? It doesn't include the new line character or something like this. Yes. I think we had it the other way around or something like that. And then people, but when you, I'm not sure.
Well, if you want to get really into this, so
let's go.
Vim, I simplified when I said Vim addresses the character. It actually addresses the row and the column, and so they can distinguish. It's the case you're thinking about is when you have an empty line. So if you have an empty line and the contents of the buffer then has like multiple /n's in a row, right? The block cursor shouldn't be there, right? We just talked about that of like you can't be on the new line, right? Except in an empty line where you have to be able to be there. And so when you have an empty line, Vim allows you to either be off the end of the line before or on the current line. But those are the same position in the document, if that makes sense. This is in visual mode, so if you go right to the end, you see there's a space to the right of you, and there's the first thing. If you think about where you are in the text document in both those cases, you're in the same place, which is after the new line on that line.
Yeah.
But they can represent that either as being at the end of the previous line or the start of the next line. Which is, there's a bug, there's a couple of edge case bugs that we have not fixed in that. So. Next time we're done with like internationalization and international keyboard input, fixing this in Vim is another mind bender.
Yeah. We're running out of time, but what's the most, maybe you have one off the top of your head, what's the most surprising thing about Vim that you learned while working on Vim Mode and Zed?
What's the most surprising thing about Vim? So probably the one where I was like, oh really? The most was implementing the dot key. So if you want to in Vim, you insert some stuff and then you press dot, it will do the same thing again.
Yeah.
I was like, cool. We'll just record all of the keystrokes you type and replay them. Sounds like what Vim would do, right?
Yeah.
And they actually very carefully distinguish between what you're doing at different times, and where this becomes particularly important is stuff like autocompletion. So if you do this, C and then tab, it does not record new line C tab. It records new line and then insert CX. And so we had to in order to make the dot repeat command work in the way that you want, we record the characters that you type when you're typing, but when you're doing things like completing, we just put the characters in, and when you're doing things like running actions, we just list out the actions that you ran, and that avoids a whole bunch of weird edge cases. But it's the kind of thing where it makes the code 10 times more complicated, but it makes the feature better enough that it's worth it. And so
they don't record the keystrokes, but effective actions or something like this. And
something
sometimes
that
could be the keystrokes, and sometimes
and I don't know how they implement tab completion and stuff, so maybe it's the keystrokes, but after some layer of processing that's happened. Because one of the features I want to build soon is the macros feature. We have recording, we have replaying, we just need to give these things names. But the way it works in Vim is they clobber your paste registers, and I'm our representation isn't quite text, so I don't know what to do about that. Maybe we just won't clobber the paste registers.
Oh yeah, you mean in like if I record a macro in Vim and say QQ and I say hello escape 0 foobar and then hit end record and I replay this from the start, it reruns my keystrokes, and if I paste from that
register,
yes, then you see this, right? It's the actual keystroke.
Right.
It says
and
insert mode.
Yeah, and then there's escape, and then
escape
there's
0 insert mode foobar space escape. But that's not what we have, right? That's what you're saying. We don't have this plain text representation of
right, because we do it kind of at the next layer down, where we have some characters, but we also have some like commands that you ran. So I think the feature of being able to edit your macro and then copy it back into the register is not likely to be supported by Zed anytime soon.
Okay. If somebody wants to support it,
yeah, of course, I will happily help make that work.
I was gonna say you're one of the big Calendly link posters on our GitHub issue tracker. So Conrad is really happy to hack with anybody. I think they can just ping you on GitHub or on Discord or whatever, or hop into the. I think you often hang out in the Vim channel, right?
Yeah.
Or in the collab
or
channel.
in Discord is probably the easiest place to find me. And very happy to. Basically, what I realized is that there's no way one person can implement all of Vim. But if I can get people excited about implementing Vim and help them get started, then they can do it for me. And so things like the Vim surrounds was actually just someone from the community who was like, I really want to build this. And it took a little bit of back and forth because it's a fairly large feature. But he was able to kind of do most of the work. And now it's like, great, like you want to build anything in Vim, you know how to do that now. And so
nice.
I'd love to have an army instead of just me. Cool.
That's a good way to end this on. Thank you, Conrad, for taking the time, for showing us Vim Mode. Yeah, if anybody wants to hack with Conrad on Vim Mode, ping him, Discord, GitHub, and I'll see you all, or we'll see you all in next few weeks.